Hi YouTube, me and Luna are back for another tier list. We just had an amazingly huge buff patch that just came a couple weeks ago with the new Warbond that came out, and we just want to go through and talk about how the entire tier list needs to be completely stripped down and re-looked at, just because a bunch of enemy changes have come in, as you probably know, from like Ball Titans, Hulks, Chargers, so on and so forth, to all of the weapons and stratagems being affected by those changes, and then some of them receiving huge buffs in return. All right, so we just need to kind of go back and look through and reorganize our look at this. So this will be a bugs tier list. Before we get into it, I just want to talk about the fact that this is going to be a tier list of like the different tiers, because I feel like there's always a little bit of confusion in the comment section of like why I put something somewhere. I will give a bunch of justifications for why I feel like it should be in that column, but I feel like a lot of people sometimes misinterpret what each column means to me as a player. Right? S tier is usually they're very easy picks and they just perform extremely well with very little downsides. A, usually a solid pick, can perform extremely well in a variety of situations, but usually there's some kind of large downside of like maybe why you wouldn't pick it, right? Something that just maybe stops it from being S tier. Or it could be a combination of things, or it could just be like one large thing. So an example would maybe be like the Blitzer, for instance. Blitzer's a fantastic weapon, but I don't think it quite deserves to be an S tier just because of range and sometimes inconsistency with terrain and bodies and stuff like that getting in the way. B tier are good picks, but not great picks. They probably can be used to great success through either just a bunch of playtime and getting used to a weapon, a bunch of accuracy, or just like they perform well in a lot of situations, but they don't perform at the best of their class. They're kind of like well-rounded, but they don't really shine above the rest, either because there's a weapon that already does a better job in like A tier or something like that, or because it just needs maybe a little bit more oomph before it goes higher. C tier are underperforming in my eyes. They are something, they're a weapon or a stratagem that just needs more love, right? It could just be a small like accuracy or maybe more ammo or maybe just a damage buff or something of some kind to like push it into B or higher. And then rework is going to be something that is either a weapon system that just has no purpose on the bug front. A good example is going to be like Ballistic Shield, or it's going to be something that is like, in my opinion, just not working properly, right? And we'll discuss those when we get to them. Okay, so let's get into it. First one is going to be autocannon. I still believe that autocannon deserves to be an S tier as a bug stratagem. It might not shine as bright as it once did in the Escalation of Freedom patch, but I still think it is an easy pick for bug, just in general, in bug missions. You are dealing with your tier 2 enemies, like your brood commanders. You're dealing with your tier 3 enemies, like your bile spewers and so on and so forth. Chargers are really easily dispatched. I'm still going for butt shots, just letting them run by you, 3 shots to the butt. They will slowly bleed out. I don't find it really worth going for the legs. Now that you can pen them, it's cool that you can do that. But on tier 10, the Behemoth Chargers just tend to have too much HP that I don't feel like it's really worth it in the long run. Your ammo economy will really suffer, and just doing 3 shots to the butt tends to be better, especially since they turn a little bit slower and you have more of an opportunity. But really enjoying using it with the gas grenades, because you'll see a charger get affected by the gas, do a nice like 90-degree turn, and he's open to those shots. The spear is the first one that I feel like is one of the only big losers of the patch, and it's mostly because it's still good. It's still really good, and it's easy to use, but it lost its purpose. It used to be the only weapon that could one-tap a Bile Titan in the head on the bug front, and just like a solid killer of like chargers and impalers as long as you have like a decent enough range so it hits like a critical spot. But now it gets completely outclassed by the recoilless rifle, and I feel like it's probably a good time we just put recoilless right up there. The recoilless is insane now. It does 50% more damage than a regular rocket like the Quasar or EAT, and only slightly less damage. I think it's like 800 less damage than the spear. So recoilless easily one-shots a Bile Titan, does easily one-shot a lot of like your chargers and impalers. It one-shots spore nests, shrieker nests, all these things that for some reason an EAT cannot one-shot. I'm not quite sure on that. Recoilless shines even brighter on the bot front if you guys haven't seen, but we'll talk about that more in that tier list. Recoilless is disgusting right now. It's really good. Really, 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 really good. And the other AT launchers are definitely paling in comparison. AMR I think is like a B- pick. I do like using it, and now that it has more durable damage, I do enjoy using it versus like Brood Commanders. And if you can pick the AMR for maybe a like Bile Spewer variant, just make sure to bring it with a supply backpack. That is one reason why it's a little bit lower, but I'm not going to want to use it versus a Charger. I'm not going to want to use it versus a Bile Titan. Shooting a Shrieker Nest or a Spore Bloom, definitely like, it's like 3 mags, I think at the moment, like 2-3 mags. It's pretty time consuming and ammo, economy wise. And then if you get like a variant that has like lots of hunters and stuff like that, you might find yourself not using the AMR as much as you want. It's a good choice, but it's not quite as strong as like the autocannon, in my opinion, that just has more explosive damage, has its own ammo supply much more, so you don't need to take a backpack. It's in a good spot, but it's more of a bot weapon. It really is. AMR really shines brighter in that regard. Quasar, I think, is like a low A. I do enjoy bringing it. It's nice to have an auto loading and an infinite ammo weapon, so you don't have to worry about like staying next to the resupply drop whenever your teammates are like taking it. My issue more or less comes with the fact that it does 50% less damage now than the recoilless. I just find myself wanting to use the recoilless more often than the Eruptor. Oh, sorry, not the Eruptor, the Quasar. Good weapon, but the recoilless is just absolutely insane in comparison at the moment. Laser Cannon is in somewhat of an interesting spot. I think it deserves to be somewhere right next to the AMR overall. Okay, bye Luna. The Laser Cannon still, like, with the changes that they've made, so it's going to like light enemies on fire more often, do a little bit more durable damage, and in general, it feels pretty good, but I find myself feeling like I wish they would do what they did with the Scythe and just increase the fire time and make it cool down faster. It's a good weapon if you're bringing other like primary weapons that can pair with it fairly well. But if you're using any other weapon, you know, I would rather just have the ammo economy of another weapon and just like have greater uptime and more instantaneous damage. Because it is very awkward to use sometimes when like a Charger is like running at you and you just need to try and shoot its butt or like a leg, and you don't have that damage per second. It requires a lot of holding on a target to do something. And taking out a Bile Titan just takes a long time. Not a fan of the ad clear on it. It needs some more. I've been really enjoying it on the bot front, but on the bug front, not as much. It's still a fun weapon, and I don't think it's bad, but yeah, not quite, you know, into that A tier. Arc Thrower is like in a fantastic spot. I really wouldn't change it from here. I think it's in a really powerful spot. One lightning bolt from it stuns the Charger, which is an amazing team play. Then also on top of that, they buffed how many bounces it has. They buffed how much durable damage. I still wouldn't sit there shooting a Behemoth Charger because it takes a lot of shocks still in order to take out a Behemoth Charger, but at least it can do it in a much faster way than it used to. I think before it was like 12 to 15 shocks to the head. I think now it's sub 10. I think it's like in the 7 to 8 range or something along those lines. I'm not sure on the exact math on it, but it's a lot better. And the fact that the Charger just goes AFK as soon as you shock him, great change. It's very powerful. I have been really enjoying it. The only reason I'm not really putting it any higher is because it's an arc weapon. It sometimes doesn't work properly due to bodies and stuff like that. I do think that you can alleviate some of it by like just getting more used to it, but I'm not really going to use it versus a Bile Titan. I'm just going to leave it to my teammate to do that. Hopefully they can deal with it. But if you are solo with this thing versus a Bile Titan, you better hope that you brought like a Thermite or something like that, because this thing really does struggle to deal with those like higher armored enemies like the Bile Titan. He's going to be all over you and you don't stun him. Stalwart. I don't think... Okay, this is one that I've debated at times with my chat. As you probably know, if you've watched any of mine, I'm not a huge fan of the Stalwart. I feel like the Stalwart at times could really just revert back to its HD1 setting, where it's just a primary weapon. It's just a primary assault rifle with a really big mag, essentially. It just has a really awkward spot in the higher tier missions, because light pen in general isn't in a great spot versus all these enemies that have like or in need of like higher tier, because you have like hive guards that are just a pain in the ass to kill with a Stalwart, or like a Brood Commander, which takes a lot of shots still, even though they keep upping the damage slightly of the Stalwart. It's a very fun weapon to use, but whenever I see a teammate bring it, I just hope that his other stratagems are a good choice. He's like bringing Thermites to be super useful for heavies. I'm hoping that he's bringing like some good like stratagems for dealing with bug breaches and stuff, because he's essentially just bringing a second primary weapon whenever I see the Stalwart. Because the Stalwart still has a very similar ad clear potential to like an Incendiary Breaker or a Cookout, right? It's particularly good against those lower tier enemies that are already dying to the person with the Incendiary Breaker or Cookout. And for that reason, I just feel like it's underperforming compared to where I think it should be. And yeah, maybe turning into a primary weapon as far as like a rework, or just giving it even more damage. But then you start stepping on the MG43. I'm not sure exactly what you do there, but let me know down below. What would you guys do to the Stalwart to make it like more meaty compared to its other support weapons? Flamethrower, I think, is like a solid B+, A-. The reason why I kind of struggle with where exactly I want to put it is mostly down to the Torture. If you have not tried it, the Torture primary weapon is essentially like a little version of the Flamethrower, but they share so many stats that it's hard for me to sometimes bring the Flamethrower over the Torture, right? I've been like really enjoying using it like the Torture with like a good support weapon that's like the recoilless or some kind of AT, and then I bring the Torture as like my primary weapon, and then I have like a pistol or something, or a grenade pistol in my secondary. And for that reason, I just feel like the Flamethrower just kind of gets thrown to the side. I know the Flamethrower still does more damage, but in a lot of situations, I could just use the Torture. It's in a weird spot. I do think the Flamethrower is a really good option. It's just, I don't know. Let me know down below what you guys think as well. And if you've been running into the same conundrum in your head of like, do I bring the Flamethrower or do I just bring the Torture? Because the 50% damage buff to the Torture has really affected how I look at the Flamethrower. It's great that I could just sit there flamethrowing a Charger, but it's not as fast of a TTK as it was before Escalation of Protocol. Or Escalation of Freedom, sorry. It is slower. And you could just use the Torture. I don't know. Let me know. B+. Airburst, I still think it needs a rework. It's in a better spot because they nerfed a bunch of other like enemies, but essentially everything got better because of that in many respects. The Airburst, I just think it needs like probably more explosive damage, maybe a way to turn off the airburst functionality of it. So like it has to hit something, then it explodes. Maybe you do like you change the splashback and make it just do a more uniform circle. I think if you had more options, you could like hold the reload button and change the firing parameters of the round, so you could like kind of fine tune it depending on what you're shooting at. It'd be really cool. It's more of a liability when I see it taken on my team because I stay away from that person. And very often they will kill themselves and they will get damage in and they will get lots of kills if they're like in an optimal spot, but you could just have like a grenade launcher and do the exact same thing. Speaking of which, the grenade launcher is a fantastic choice. I love this thing and it's always an extremely fun weapon to use. With the added magazine in reserve, thank you, Arrowhead, for adding that. Maybe one more. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe one more mag in reserve would be really nice. And then on top of that, a little bit more explosive damage. It's great. I love using it. I still bring it with the supply backpack, and I'm just like that team support player. And then every once in a while, I can just respawn myself. You get 3 mags back from the supply backpack. It's awesome. You know, just like sitting there on a bug breach, you farm. It's really good versus Chargers too, because of like the increased explosive damage over the time. And I think just some redesign of the Charger. It very consistently 2 to 3 taps the Charger's butt, especially if you're impacting it. So it actually does perform very well versus armored enemies. It underperforms versus Bile Titans, but at least you can blow up the stomach fairly quickly for your teammates. But it's very fun. If you have not checked it out, it's been in a good spot for a while, and now it's just even in a bigger, like better spot. Like if you're someone who just loves explosive weapons, just tap fire it. Please don't be that person that just like spam fires the entire like magazine at like a group of enemies. You actually don't need to do that. It does a lot of damage. MG43 has been a lot of fun to use in the patch. I think it's just a solid performer post-patch. Very fun to use. It is like a souped-up primary weapon, more so than the Stalwart because it has medium pen. You are the chaff killer, and you will take care a lot of the like higher tier enemies. And if it's a Bile Spear variant, you have that. It's been good to use. It's been really good to use. It's still not killing Chargers' butts extremely fast, and you're not really taking care of a Bile Titan. I mean, you could go underneath and shoot up to its stomach now that the Bile Titan's stomach is lower pen necessary, but I think it's in a good spot. I've been really enjoying using it, and if you pair it, you could be that team support player, and you know bring the supply backpack, which is still amazing. You know, it's good. It's good. Commando, I think is like a low A. Good for taking out Bile Titans, good for taking out Chargers. It's just a good expendable rocket. Like if you're doing an arc thrower build, you know, bringing some kind of like EAT or Commando to pair alongside is a great option. You know, for those situations where maybe you want to help out with the Bile Titans and Chargers more effectively, you know, double tap to a Charger or Bile Titan's head, and it's dead. It's great. Good weapon, very consistent. Good cooldown for the most part. I'm sure that there's going to be some people that prefer to use the EAT over it, but, you know, for that reason, it probably just goes right next to it. I still feel like the EAT and other rockets do pale in comparison to the recoils. The recoils just is the better option in many circumstances. But when you're already bringing a support weapon, both expendables are in a good spot in that regard. Yeah, I mean, they're still staples. Okay, for the Railgun, difficult one. to place. I do like the changes, but there's been some hidden changes alongside. It no longer gets ramping pen, right? So it used to be as you like got a higher and higher charge, you got higher and higher pen. And for that reason, it will sometimes not do as much damage as when you originally read the patch notes. You said like, you know, it's going to do so much damage. It's going to be one tapping everything. It didn't really play out like that because they also changed the health values of Battle Titans and stuff like that. It seems like you can, like if you get really good at it, get like a 2-3 tap on Battle Titans, but it seems like in a lot of situations you'll probably get a 3 to 4 tap on Battle Titans, which is a good TTK. I've been enjoying that. 2 taps on Charger's legs to remove their armor. I think it's like a 3 tap to a Behemoth Charger's head, which is a good TTK as well. It's a solid performer versus anti-tank, and I think it's a solid performer versus like your Brood Commanders and your Battle Spears and stuff like that. I'm really enjoying it. I think it deserves somewhere to be like an A-. I haven't seen a lot of need for it though, mostly because the other AT options are just so good now that the recoil, or sorry, the Railgun kind of has a difficult spot being like super effective, right? It's along the same lines of like where I think like the spear ends up falling, is that like it kind of just got outclassed in its respective domain. And the Railgun has a better time in bot missions, but in bug missions, I find myself not really feeling very impactful to the game when I could just have the recoilless and be like the ultimate anti-air armor killer, and you know, just bring like some kind of medium pen weapon for like Spears and Brood Commanders, right? Like I don't really need to bring the Railgun for that reason. So bit of a difficult one. Maybe in the future when we get like a harder like to kill enemies, it could like come back to being more of like a team support weapon where like the recoilless plus the Railgun have this awesome synergy where like one recoilless spot plus like a shot or two of the Railgun is enough to hit that breakpoint. But at the moment, you might as well just bring another AT weapon. And there are better medium pen or medium plus pen weapons for like the general ad clear. Such as the heavy machine gun. I think the heavy machine gun is like a B+ to A- at the moment. It's definitely lost a little bit of flare. If you guys didn't know, it lost some durable damage in the patch. I guess it got like not really listed. I don't remember reading it, but it did lose a little bit of its flare. And for that reason, I think it's very similar to the MG43. The MG43 is more of like your high fire rate, but if you want more damage per shot, you go with the HMG. The HMG definitely feels like something you would want to bring the supply pack back for. And I think it's fair to keep it around B+ and very similar to the MG43. They're just, you know, very similar weapons, just different ways about going about it. If I'm taking out Charger, I'd still prefer to have the HMG, and I'm still going for the butt of the Charger rather than going for the leg. On Behemoth Chargers, I think it was somewhere around an entire magazine to take out the leg of a Behemoth Charger, which doesn't end up feeling worth it, especially since it takes a while to do. It's rather good against taking out Battle Titans, especially if you like boost up the fire rate and go for the butt. But yeah, it's lost a little bit of its flair because they lost some durable damage, but still really strong contender for the bot front. So don't worry about that. I feel a little bit weird going and putting the jetpack in B tier just because it's been told that we're going to be getting a buff for it relatively soon. We don't know when that patch is going to come, so I kind of just feel like I need to put out this tier list now. It's a fun stratagem to use, but it's not particularly great at the moment, but we know it's getting a buff. So I'm going to keep it B- because I know there's some insane plays you can make with it. I just find myself personally never really using it, but I can respect that other people can make some really cool plays where they get up to high ground or find some really good spots where enemies can't get to them, or like getting over terrain so the enemies have to take a longer path. You know, there's some really cool identity things that like only the jetpack can do, which, you know, I think I need to give some amount of credit to. But I am looking forward to what they're going to do next. Is it going to be like a lower cooldown, which would be really cool? Is it going to be maybe more height, like the old Dark Matter jetpack that I absolutely loved using? It was so much fun. We'll see. I'm excited. Spy Backpack, I think, deserves to be right up there in S. It enables so many weapons to be higher tier. Right? I've mentioned it quite a bit already that like some weapons that just have low magazine counts, it elevates them to an amazing S tier status, right? And it's just a great situation a great stratagem to have in these bot front or bug front tier 10 missions, just because you're going to be running out of ammo a lot. And especially for people that like to use their incendiary weapons, you're going to be running out of ammo, and this thing will enable you to basically have it at peak performance at all times. And you are ad clearing with those incendiary weapons better than you would be even with the stalwart, which is insane. So got to keep the supply backpack up there. Shield generator, I think is still going to be somewhere in B+, A-. I still see people using it. It's a great stratagem for like those people that are struggling to stay alive, especially since the update, our limbs are more fragile. And if you're someone who's more of a lone wolf, this will prevent those like random, you know, alpha warriors coming up behind you and just like two-shotting you. This will reduce those situations immensely. So I see a lot of value in it. I don't want to put it nearly as high as Supply Backpack because Supply Backpack just gives you infinite stims. It gives you so many more nades, gives you infinite ammo. And if you don't understand why I say infinite, it's because usually by the time you use all 4 backpack recharges, you've normally like gotten your next backpack already back, and you can just keep using it like that, right? And just pop stims early and often. Really like the shield backpack. Obviously, it's not bugged anyone. For anyone that might say it in the comments, streamer, it makes me immune to bugs. They fixed it. They fixed it already. You are not immune to melee damage anymore. It is back to the way it was. Laser Guard Dog, I think, is somewhere in the A tier as well. Very strong, good pickup for, you know, if you're going to pair it with a Quasar or pair it with like an Arc Thrower for like the enemies that you can't really get to. It's just really nice to have covering your back, and it still does slay out, especially now that lasers more reliably light enemies on fire. So for the higher HP enemies that maybe it was struggling against, it will be lighting them on fire. Solid choice. You know, just make sure that you're being careful. Don't stand behind your enemies. The Laser Guard Dog sometimes can still wipe out your teammates. I died quite a bit today to it. But yeah, just be careful of that. I'm going to put Ballistic Shield right there in the needs a rework category. I just don't really see a point of it still in bugs front. It has more of a purpose in the bot front, but even then I wish it would get a little bit more love. Yeah, just I think that's all I really need to say about it. It just needs more love. The normal Ballistic Guard Dog is in a fairly good spot. I do think that the Ballistic Guard Dog still needs medium pen. A larger magazine would be the 2 most important ones. And honestly, now that we have the guard, what was it? Dog Breath Guard Dog. The Guard Dog, or sorry, the Dog Breath Dart. Oh my God. What the fuck? Dog Breath Guard Dog. It has unlimited ammo. Which, could they just give this one unlimited ammo too? Yeah, they could. It needs more. It needs more, and honestly, like I could easily put it even lower, and I would feel very justified in doing so. A lot of people like simp over this backpack, but the Laser Guard Dog just does it better, and it has infinite ammo. Both mechs, I think, are going to go either like B+, A-. The reason why I'm kind of debating on like whether or not they go higher or not is more or less like, how good are you at piloting it? If you feel like you can survive and utilize the entire ammo supply, I think it easily goes into A tier. But if you're someone who's more novice at it, and maybe you're getting punished by like a Bile Titan or like your teammates, you're walking into like those plants that explode and your mechs are dying, the 10-minute cooldown is extremely punishing still. So for that reason, I think it kind of dances between A tier and B tier. But I'm sure you've all maybe tried it since the patch, especially the Emancipator. It has a good amount more ammo. It deals with enemies that it used to take a lot more shots to kill in far less. And it's awesome for taking out, like, you know, just rolling into the Mega Nest and just like walking through all that damage. Like, people always talk about it not having enough health, but like, I just like walk through. Nothing can really touch me other than a Bile Titan or a Bile Spewer. But even then, I'm killing those things so fast and using so little ammo. I feel like I can solo a lot of these nests by myself. But that more or less comes down to the pilots. Some people might have struggle with it, which is why maybe B+. But if you're finding yourself like a good pilot, I think you could even put it at like A+. Not quite S, because I still think that it might require more ammo. They've been talking about having some kind of like resupply mechanic to it. We'll see if those get implemented, or just a lower cooldown in general, more charges to maybe like put it into S tier with a good pilot. But yeah, I think if you really wanted to be a mech pilot, this is the patch for you. It feels extremely powerful on the bot front. I sometimes feel like I'm invincible with it when I'm running around. It's extremely powerful. Okay, Eagle Airstrike. I've been having a little bit of a trouble with this one. I don't know if it still deserves to be an A tier, or sorry, an S tier. I'm going to place it in S- for now. The only reason I'm a little bit struggling with it is because the prevalence of the 500 kg now. I might as well place it now. The 500 kg is disgusting now with the range increase. Yes, you're still going to get situations where Bile Titans survive things, and I think that's a product of they upped the health pools of Bile Titans to be tankier in these situations. So there's going to be situations where like maybe it walks too far and doesn't die, or like I've still seen some instances of where like they take direct hits and they still survive, but at least they're like an extremely low health. But man, is the 500 kg good at killing chaff and impalers and just chargers. Like the airstrike at times struggles with dealing with, you know, some amount of charger spam. I'm sure you've seen it like where like a charger like just shrugs off an airstrike and just keeps charging at you. It makes me wonder on whether or not I want to put it in S tier. I think it still deserves to be up there because it's extremely powerful, but maybe it deserves to be a little bit lower. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Strafing run. I hate to do it. I do, because I love the strafing run, but I think it needs more. There's so many like tracers that come out of the Eagle when it goes and does its strafing run, but man, it just doesn't reliably kill a lot of things. And yeah, it's great at spore blooms and shrieker dens, but like, dude, you can use so many weapons now to kill those because they've lowered the pen requirement of them. Like, I've seen people you could just use a crossbow, a Ruptor, like a heavy machine gun, grenade launcher. There's so many things that already do that. So it's like, I can't really just give it B tier just because it deals with shrieker dens and spore blooms well now. Like, I definitely think that I want the strafing run to feel more like like the A10 Warthog in real life. But it doesn't give me that power fantasy at the moment. There's not enough hit splashes for random chaff far too often. Like, I'll send it in and a bunch of brood commanders will just survive. They'll take a couple hits but still survive. And I just don't want that happening. I would much rather use the other Eagles in comparison. In comparison, you know, I would much rather have like the Eagle Cluster. The Eagle Cluster is a fantastic chaff killing weapon. I do see it sometimes killing, you know, those higher tier enemies. Not super often, but like definitely like a Impaler or a Charger can die to it if enough clusters land very close to like the neck of an Impaler when it's in the ground, or a Charger's butt if enough land next to it. It's very strong. Very strong. 5, you can just spam it over the course of an entire bug breach. You will get many, many kills. Going into the 110s, they gave it a bit more damage in this latest patch, but I've been fairly unimpressed overall by it. Mostly down to the fact that like we have so many good AT options at the moment, and there's so many times where I feel like the 110 does not kill the Charger or the Impaler or the Bile Titan, and I have to use a second one, and I only have 3 charges. If they all of a sudden gave it 5 charges or just up the damage enough to be like pretty like reliable one-shot, I would immediately put the 110s in like A or S tier, but it's just not reliable enough for me to put it any higher than B. It's good. It's not a bad one, and it will often soften the target that you are shooting at. So hopefully like it's cracked open a side on the Bile Titan or cracked open the side on the Charger, or like weaken the Impaler enough that maybe 1 or 2 grenade pistol shots, right? Rather than, you know, the 5 or so that it normally needs. But yeah, like the 110s need a little more love. It's kind of gotten power crept by so many other AT weapons at the moment. Smoke feels fairly weak in general on bug missions. I do see the purpose behind it. You know, if there's a lot of patrols, you know, right in front of you, you can have that teammate that you use to, you know, curtain off them so you don't have to deal with them. If you're running away from a bunch of bugs, you can't throw it behind you or like throw it at the ground and keep running. And sometimes if you have enough of a gap on the bugs, you know, you can like lose them, you know, GTA Wanted style, but it's kind of limited. In a lot of situations, I would rather just like bring a cluster bomb and just kill the enemies following me. Because you will get into those inevitable situations in tier 10 4-player co-op where you're standing in front of a bug breach, and I'd rather not have a stealth stratagem. I'd rather have an aggressive stratagem that actually does something all the time, right? If you're playing solo tier 10, smokes go way higher, but this is a 4-player, you know, tier 10 stratagem tier list. I just can't put smoke any higher than B- because of that. Napalm, I think, is a solid A-. Very good, but in most situations, I feel like because we have so many fire stratagems at the moment, or ways to put fire on the ground, I would rather just bring the normal Eagle airstrike because of that. It's a solid choice, and I do love using it, but it does get outclassed, and it doesn't feel as necessary when most of your team is probably already bringing the Orbital Napalm Barrage, or already has a Scorcher, or has a Flamethrower, so the flames are already on the ground and being used. So doubling up on the flame, not always super useful. And the AoE damage that is done when the individual napalm canisters explode, I'd rather just bring the airstrike in those situations. So like in a head-to-head, I think airstrike usually will win that 1v1. Okay, going to Orbital Rail, solid B. It did receive a buff, so it reliably one-shots Bile Titans, and I do like that, but it still has a very long cooldown compared to other stratagems that can do it. Like, I would much rather just bring the 500 kg. Maybe that's just because I'm very experienced with using the 500 kg, so it very reliably one-shots Bile Titans, and I get 2 of them on a shorter cooldown. I can see someone who's maybe new to tier 10, maybe valuing the Orbital Rail Cannon more, but Orbital Rail Cannon just needs a little bit more, right? Or it should just be like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like maybe just keep upping the damage, so when we do get a new difficulty, and a new like tier of Bile Titan, maybe an Alpha Bile Titan or something like that, it reliably one-shots that. You know, just keeping that one-shot fantasy alive in the higher difficulty that inevitably comes, maybe that's its identity. But at the moment, in tier 10, I'm putting it right next to Spear for a reason, because I feel like it needs more. It lacks its identity. It's okay. 120 millimeter barrage, I think is a solid B+ option, maybe even a bit closer to A-. The only reason I'm not going to put it any higher is because I still think it gets outclassed by both the 380 and the especially the orbital napalm, which, you know, I don't think anyone is surprised that I'm putting the orbital napalm in S tier. It is incredibly good. Yes, it doesn't really clear out bug nests, like the actual holes. Like the projectile has to go into the hole to blow it up, not land next to it. And it doesn't really take care of armor. But because armored enemies just kind of fall over at the moment, and the main difficulty of a lot of these tier 10 missions is just the overwhelming amount of chaff, this stratagem takes care of it. It is extremely good at doing that. And if like you bring like 2 or 3 on your team, you just cycle them, right? Just make sure you don't throw them at the same time. And like that bug breach, like you don't have to deal with any of the chaff. Like the fire lasts so long, the individual explosions do so much damage. It's extremely good. Extremely good. I'm going to put the orbital laser right next to the orbital rail cannon. It's losing identity and it's just getting power crept at this point. Either they should remove the charges and just keep it a fairly long cooldown, so it's something that you just kind of like throw and forget, or they should up the charges and lower the cooldown and maybe give it some more damage. I think there's a bunch of different ways they can like look at it, but right now it is like, it's an okay stratagem. Like it's not a bad choice, and it's like fairly nice for the fact that like if you throw it at a good time, it will like clean up a lot of chaff for you. But after talking about the orbital napalm, you just bring that, man. It's so much better, and you don't have to worry about charges. Like after saying it out loud, like does it deserve to be farther below? Probably. Like they did up the damage versus like chargers and Bile Titans, and it does more consistently kill them. It doesn't like waste as much time on them, but it's still not a great choice, and I don't really recommend it nearly as much as it once was. You know, this is very much evidence of like power creep happening, and the laser just not keeping up with other stratagems. 380, still a fantastic A tier stratagem. Highly recommend someone bringing it on your fire team. You know, you can easily stack a 380 and an orbital napalm together, and a lot of that bug breach is just dead, right? The 380 very reliably takes out a lot of your bigger chaff enemies, you know, your spewers and stuff like that maybe the fire isn't enough to kill. Chargers are going to die to it. The random impaler in the back of the bug breach will probably die to it. Maybe the Bile Titan might walk fast enough to get out of the range before it dies to it, but, you know, I'm sure you've seen a 380 just annihilate Bile Titans like crazy. It's extremely good. Orbital EMS, really bad spot at the moment. I do not recommend using it. I just use gas. Gas Strike just completely outclasses it at this point. I do not know really what they were thinking, not buffing it. I'm hoping that they haven't mentioned that they're buffing it yet, but I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks when we get the next buff patch, this thing gets some love. It needs maybe like a large radius, really low cooldown. Maybe it's allowed to stun Bile Titans. That'd be great. That would make it unique, you know, because gas doesn't really affect Bile Titans. Yeah, it needs some love. And I don't necessarily think it needs a rework. It just needs buffs to make it differentiate itself from gas, which just completely outclasses it at the moment. Orbital Airburst, I think is a decent B+ option. I do enjoy using it, but there's many situations where I'd rather just have maybe like a cluster, or I would just take another orbital over it. If it lasted longer, like more, you know, shells coming down, or maybe a larger delay in it, because I do think it overkills and not enough enemies can like populate that area where it just exploded. Because I would love for it to just maybe have like maybe a 2-second longer delay, so it's like kills a bunch of enemies, enough enemies can walk forward, kills a bunch of enemies, walks forward, and maybe like an extra 1 or 2 bursts. I think it would be in a prime spot. It's close, but not quite yet. Smoke, Orbital Smoke is just a worse, inferior version of Eagle Smoke. I've seen quite a few content creators talk about maybe it should do like a curtain of smoke in a circle around you, so you can like throw it at your feet and it protects you in some regard, and like, you know, you can kind of do like a solid snake and like get away in that regard. It's just like the line of the Eagle is so much better than like the sporadic smoke dispersal of the Orbital Smoke. So maybe that, like, I guess that technically is a rework, and yeah, I think it does deserve it. Walking Barrage is a solid option, but I have been notoriously not a huge fan of Walking Barrage. I just feel like the bloom or the spread on each individual shell is just too great. I want it to be more narrow. If they narrowed the spread so I could more reliably like run away from a bunch of enemies, throw it at my feet, and then like just like a very consistent curtain of 380s come down. I think that'd be really cool and put it in a much better unique spot than 380. Because like right now, I just would rather use the 380 for a bug breach or like a base or something like that, right? Like it's just more shells come down in a concentrated area. I am way more confident in it killing way more enemies than the walking barrage. Or if they gave the walking barrage maybe a lower cooldown to differentiate it, that could work too. Gas is, I think, in like a good spot. I'm probably going to put it right next to napalm. Napalm's better because you can have like 3 charges and you can kind of spam it over the course of a long bug breach, because tier 10 bug breaches tend to last like over a minute. Whereas gas, you're going to throw it. It lasts for a while. It does a good job at like CC and damage. It's good. I like it. But for the rest of that bug breach, it's non-existent, right? Whereas with my Eagle Napalm, I can just throw it, does a bunch of damage, lays out a current of fire, kills a bunch of things. Then I lay out another one. And then I lay out another one, right? Like, I just get so much more uptime for it that I would prefer napalm as long as people aren't bringing already other forms of napalm. What's great about gas and why it deserves to still be right next to it is the CC effect, right? Like you're messing with your chargers, brute commanders, and so on and so forth. They're staying in that kill zone that your team has for longer, which is fantastic. And that's why it deserves to be so high. But how does it go to S tier? Shorter cooldown, larger radius, because right now it's not that much bigger than just gas grenade. Because you could just bring a gas grenade and have 4 of them for an entire bug breach. It's really strong. And then probably, like, as I said, like the larger radius, maybe it gets a little bit more damage than normal gas. As far as I understand, it does the exact same damage as the gas grenade, so it doesn't really have any more potency. Or allowing it to affect Battle Titans, that would be really cool as well. But then that would really affect the Orbital EMS. Orbital Gatling, solid pick, solid A tier, great choice. Throw it at a bug breach. It will soften up your heavier targets and kill a lot of your smaller targets. Really short cooldown. I'm sure you've all used it. Really fun to use. Good stratagem. Just solid. Solid. Not much more to say other than I enjoy picking it and it's a good choice. Orbital Precision, I think, has dropped down from its initial S tier rating of my last one, and it's still a very solid pick, but I feel like the only time I really end up using it is on like Gakrux or something like that, where there's a ton of trees and you can't really use your eagles. That's the times where I end up using it, and it's like only in that situation. The 500 kg at the moment just kind of outclasses it because you get 2 on a short cooldown and you just get this massive radius with the 500 kg, whereas the Orbital Precision in comparison is like half the radius, which is insane, right? Does Orbital Precision need some love now? Probably. It definitely needs something more now that like the 500 kg has received such a buff. So going into our sentries, autocannon is in a good spot, good DPS. It will eliminate those Battle Titans chargers in a good time frame, but I don't think it's the best anti-tank or the best turret bar none anymore. And, you know, we've already been talking about how like the Rocket Sentry, even last patch and the patch before that, has been just in such a good spot. It has so much of an ammo economy because it has so much more ammo, does really good damage against those enemies that now have lower armor. So you're doing like full damage all the time. It's really good at ad clearing because of the AoE on it. Yeah, autocannon could probably need some more love, just ammo. I think if it just got like a couple more barrages of ammo, I think would be fair for it. But like in general, I think a lot of sentries minus the Rocket Sentry just need a little bit more ammo because they have such a long cooldown of 3 minutes, and sometimes they just kind of run out of their ammo way too fast. Both mortars, I'm going to put like middle A, and the reason why I'm putting them here and not like a little bit lower is just because when in tandem, they actually do fantastic. You just got to make sure you're talking to your team about the fact that you're using them, and you got to make sure the person that's using them is trying to ping the targets that you want it to hit, so it's not just like landing on your team. But these two in conjunction versus a bug breach, extremely powerful, right? Versus ad clear and like your heavier pen targets, it's not really going to kill your Battle Titans, but even on like defense missions, like if your entire team just brings mortars, like doubles up on mortars, you can kind of just like go AFK. Like your mortars just do all the work for you. They're extremely good. So for that reason, A tier still. But you know, they have the downside of potentially screwing over your team. So make sure the person that is bringing them is communicating when they're using them and pinging targets that they want it to land on. Okay, another really fun one that is like really crept up and I'm using a lot more on the bug front rather than just the bot front is the HMG emplacement. I see a lot of people just like throw it down at the beginning of a mission, do like a 360 and just shoot all the spore blooms and stuff like that. If a Battle Titan shows up, just aim at the head. It does kill a Battle Titan quite fast. Chargers, aim for the legs. You can strip them and kill the leg quite fast. HMG's in a really good spot on the bug front. Maybe not as much on the bot front because I do die a lot when I'm using it on bot front, but on bot front, very solid. Love using it. Highly recommend. Ton of fun. Machine gun emplacement and the Gatling emplacement, I'm going to put like middle B. Solid choices, but their ammo supplies in general don't always match up with what you want them to be. And I do think that they deserve to be next to each other. They're just used in slightly different situations. Gatling's better for like the raw DPS output and killing a lot of enemies really fast, whereas machine gun is more or less like a more aggressive stratagem. You throw it on an off angle, and it's because it's got a lower cooldown. You can use it more often. But like, I would rather have a little bit more AT or use like the Rocket Sentry versus these two, right? The uptime on the Rocket Sentry is just so much greater, and the ad clear and just like general viability versus armored units is just strong, very strong. I'm going to put all of the mines into the C tier. The reason for that is just mines have too long of a cooldown. I like the fact that they spread out the mines greater now, so you're less likely to have those chain explosion situations where like one mine explodes, then another mine explodes, then another mine explodes, even though the enemy only stepped on one, right? It's not even like the body like went over to those. No, they were literally activating each other in a previous patch, right? I think they deserve a lower cooldown, and please make them more visible to Helldivers. You know, I'm always worried when a Helldiver, you know, takes them on my team because it's like, are they going to tell me they put it down? Or do I need to like constantly watch my teammates to know that they put a minefield over there? And I have to like scan the ground because my teammates are like kind of like making it harder for me to play the game. If mines were more obvious to the Helldivers on your team, I definitely wouldn't hit them as hard. And if they had a lower cooldown, I think they'd be a lot more useful for like defensive positions or just like setting up for a bug breach. Like a bug breach is about to happen. You can lay out a minefield and make sure it's far enough away from like your team stratagems, because that's also a downside. Your teammates are going to throw stratagems that blow up your mines, and then your mines are on a 3-minute cooldown and they didn't do anything, right? And are you going to get mad at your teammate? Not really. It's not their fault. Like, you put your mines in a spot, but then you're going to feel like, oh, maybe I need to put my mines on an off angle, but that's just going to end up killing your teammates, right? Like, it's not a good position. Shield generator, I think, needs a buff and just a general rework on the bug front. I would love for the shield generator to not allow bugs to enter, right? Maybe they have to deal damage to it beforehand. You know, keep the duration low, but give it some HP and allow like no bugs to walk through. At the moment, it's really just charges. They bump into it and then they just walk in, right? I would love for all bugs to not be able to enter for some reason. Maybe they're afraid of it. Maybe they, I don't know. I think that'd be a really cool way of like implementing it and making it somewhat useful on the bug front and like fun to use. But let me know down below what you guys think you would do to it. I think it deserves a rework at the moment. It definitely needs love on the bug front regardless, but on the bug front, I'd like to see maybe more uniqueness. So yeah. And for our last one that we have here, I'm actually going to put the Tesla Tower in A-. I think it's actually in a relatively good spot. For those who don't know, with the arc changes, this thing stuns chargers. So its #1 threat now gets stunned over and over again if it tries to take it out. Now, it's still not going to be like A+ or anything like that, because a second charger could easily come from another angle and take it out in one fell swoop, and like Bile Titans still shit on it. But it's very strong if you can put it in a good spot and kind of protect it from Bile Titans and stuff like that. This thing will slay out and just like solo kill like bug breaches in front of it. Because like if it's mostly just chaff, like you're doing like a hatchery version, it's just mostly hunters in front of you, this thing just slays out. And it's quite tanky because of all the patches over the last 6 months. It's relatively good. I like using it. Okay, so for the last two that I did not mention here, the Sterilizer and the Dog Breath. The Dog Breath, I'm going to probably put in like B-. I think it actually deserves to be somewhat near the other guard dog, maybe a little higher. My main concern with it is that far too often it just goes flying out and like attacks a Shrieker and does nothing. Or it just like only aims at one like stupid enemy in front of me instead of spreading out and like maybe attacking many. Like I would love for the AI to change of like once it infects an enemy, it goes to another enemy and then another enemy and then another enemy, right? It's too stupid right now. And it just like actually tries to kill the enemy with the breath. And it's just like, for that reason, it's like only good in like 1v1 situations in a charger, because then all of a sudden a charger can't hit you, right? Because it goes AFK. It needs more. It needs more love. It needs more love. And for that reason, I'm not going to put it any higher than like B-. I think it's cool. It just needs like some buffs for its AI, or maybe a larger spray nozzle or something like that. Or like have a lingering effect, you know, like it sprays an area and then like cloud stays for, I don't know, something along those lines to make it more interesting. Sterilizer is probably unironically going to go like probably like right up next to like the Flamethrower. I end up using it as much as I use the flamethrower in a lot of situations. I really like using it. It's fun to use, and you just do like circles around you, like, and none of the enemies will attack you, and they slowly die over time. It's not great versus chargers, but what you can do is like you puff a charger for like 1 second, and then you run up behind it, and then you like use your crossbow, your primary, it just shoots butt, and it dies, right? Or it just like makes it really easy for your teammates to take out, right? Obviously, don't use it versus a ball titan; it doesn't do enough damage. But yeah, I would put it right next to the flamethrower. It's extremely fun to use, and it's a great CC weapon. I don't necessarily want to put it any higher because in a lot of situations, you could just use a gas grenade or the gas stratagem. But hey, I don't think you are trolling whatsoever you bring it. It is extremely useful. Just don't get like too close to like the bug breach and feel like you want to do that because you're stopping your teammates from wanting to put in stratagems and kill those things that you're doing that to. But yeah. Dog breath, B minus, sterilizer, B plus, maybe even A minus if you are an absolute aficionado with it and you have like a really good setup. I think it could maybe even deserve to be A minus. Yeah, that's my tier list. That is updated for the most recent patch with the dog breath warbond, the fart warbond. Really solid patch. We feel extremely powerful. I'm hoping that in the near future we'll get some more difficulty to the game. But yeah, we feel really powerful at the moment on the bug side. Yeah, try out some new stratagems. There's a lot of stratagems that you may have like not wanted to use before because they weren't as proficient. But like honestly, everything in the B tier is like quite good in bug missions. It's not like because it's in B, it's bad. Anything in the B tier is like quite usable and has like situations where it can absolutely shine. And I love to see like Tesla Tower being used more. And I love to see a lot of these like stratagems that were in A tier before moving up and just like, yeah, great patch. Feel very powerful. And I look forward to more difficulty in the future. If you guys enjoyed the tier list, please consider dropping a like down below and commenting. What are you guys using? What's your go-to loadouts? Did I miss something? There's just so much that has changed that I bet I missed something. I bet that there is something in the stratagem tier list that like, streamer, you missed this, because like I've only been able to use everything like once or twice in certain games because there's just so many changes, you know. So yeah, let me know. Do consider joining the Discord, link down below as well if you just want to have a conversation with me. Obviously I was live the entire time, so come by the streams. I stream Tuesday through Sunday, really early morning NA, morning EU, and it's like afternoon, evening if you're in other parts of the world. So yeah, much love, peace out, thanks for watching, bye everybody.